If you're not rich yet, there's a reason, and it's not what you think, because most people are doing everything right. They work hard, they save money, they try to be responsible, and still, nothing changes. You earn more, but life gets more expensive. You save more, but it feels like you're always behind, and at some point you start asking yourself a question you don't say out loud: what am I doing wrong? The uncomfortable answer is probably nothing. Because the problem isn't just what you do, the problem is where you are in the system. In 2008, one bank in the United States was about to collapse. They didn't save more, they didn't work harder, they didn't budget better. They got $700 billion almost instantly. Not in years, not in decades, overnight. A normal person earning $50,000 a year would need 14 million years to make that amount. 14 million. And if that sounds insane, it should, because it means you are not playing the same game. You think you are, but you're not. You're playing at the very end of a system where money is created, distributed, and then slowly loses value before it reaches you. And until you understand that, everything will feel confusing. Let me simplify it. Money is not something that just exists. It is created every day, every second, and it's not created evenly. It enters the system in layers, first to banks, then to institutions, then to investors, then to asset owners, and only after all of that, it reaches you. By the time it gets to you, prices have already adjusted, assets have already moved, opportunities have already shifted. You are not late because you made a mistake. You are late because of where you stand. Think about your life. You work, you get paid, you try to save, maybe you invest a little, but it always feels like you're chasing something that keeps moving further away. That's not a feeling, that's a pattern, because when new money enters the system, it doesn't make everyone richer. It redistributes purchasing power. The people who get it first use it before prices rise. The people who get it last deal with higher prices after everything adjusts. And that gap is where wealth is transferred, quietly, consistently, without most people ever noticing. This idea has a name. It's called the Cantillon Effect. But you don't need to remember the name. You just need to understand the mechanism. Early access wins, late access adjusts, and you are a late access player. That's why it feels like no matter how much you improve, you're always catching up, because you are. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most people believe that saving money is the smart thing to do. It feels safe, it feels responsible, but in a system where money is constantly expanding, holding cash is not neutral. It's negative, because while your money stays still, everything else moves. Prices go up, assets go up, costs go up, and your money slowly loses what it can buy, not dramatically, not overnight, slowly, quietly, and that's why most people don't react. Because there's no moment where everything collapses. There's just a constant drift, a slow loss of position, and over time, that drift becomes a gap, and that gap becomes your reality. Now think about what most people do next. They try to compensate with effort. They work more. They push harder. They take on extra hours. They try to earn their way out of the problem. But here's the issue. Effort inside a system you don't understand has limits. Because if the system is moving faster than you are, working harder just keeps you in place. Imagine running on a treadmill that's slowly accelerating. At first, it feels fine. You adjust, you keep up. But over time, it speeds up. And eventually, no matter how hard you try, you fall behind. That's what's happening. The system is accelerating. Money creation is increasing. Asset prices are rising faster. And the gap between those who understand this and those who don't is getting wider. Not because some people are smarter, but because some people are positioned differently. Now let me show you what that actually means. Imagine two people, same age, same income, same discipline. One of them starts buying assets early, small amounts, nothing crazy, just consistent exposure. The other one waits, saves more, tries to feel ready, tries to be safe. 10 years later, the difference between them is not small, it's massive, because assets don't grow linearly, they grow exponentially, And exponential growth punishes delay more than it rewards effort. The person who started early benefits from compounding. The person who waited is now trying to catch something that already moved. And that's the trap. You think you need more money to start, but what you actually need is to start before the system moves further away, because time in the system matters more than timing the system. And every year you wait doesn't just delay your progress, it reduces your potential outcome. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. Why does this keep happening? Why does the system keep expanding? Because it has to. The entire system is built on debt, and debt requires growth. If growth stops, the system slows. If the system slows, pressure builds. And when pressure builds, more money is created to keep things moving. That money flows into assets first. It always does. And that's why asset prices keep rising faster than wages. That's why it feels like everything is getting more expensive at the same time. That's why it feels like you need to run just to stay in place. Because you do. And this is the part most people never fully accept. You are not behind by accident. You are behind because of where you stand in the system. You earn late. You spend late. You invest late. And then you wonder why it's not working. It's not about working harder anymore. It's about understanding where you are. Because once you understand that, everything changes. And this is where it gets even more important. Because most people, after hearing this, think, okay, so I just need to invest. But that's not enough. Because investing without understanding the system is just another way of being late. And what I'm about to show you next is why most people who invest still don't get ahead. Because most people don't lose money in obvious ways. They lose it slowly, quietly, without realizing it. And that's why they never react. Because nothing feels broken. Nothing feels urgent. It just feels harder. And here's the part almost nobody explains properly. Investing alone does not fix your position. Timing does. Access does. Structure does. Because if you invest the same way everyone else does, at the same time everyone else does, you are still late. You are just slightly less late. And that difference is not enough to create real wealth. Let's break this down. When most people think about investing, they think about returns. If I get 8% or 10% over time, I'll be fine. But that's not the real game. The real game is, when did you enter? And what were you buying relative to the system at that moment? Because returns are not just numbers. They are timing multiplied by position. And if your position is weak, even good returns won't change your trajectory fast enough. That's why you see people investing for years and still feeling stuck, because they are participating but not positioned. And there's a big difference between those two. Participation is passive. Positioning is strategic. One reacts, the other anticipates. Now look at what's happening globally. Money supply keeps expanding. Debt keeps rising. Governments keep needing growth to sustain the system. That doesn't reverse easily. It accelerates, which means the pressure on assets increases. And when pressure increases, prices don't just rise, they detach. They move faster than fundamentals, faster than wages, faster than what feels normal. And if you're not already inside that movement, you are chasing it, always behind, always adjusting. And that creates a psychological trap. Because from your perspective, it feels like you're doing everything right. But the outcome doesn't match the effort. So you question yourself. You think maybe you need to try harder, learn more, wait longer. But the real issue is simpler. You're solving the wrong problem. You're trying to optimize effort in a system where leverage matters more than effort. And leverage doesn't come from working more hours. It comes from understanding flows, where money goes first, where value accumulates, where growth is concentrated. Because once you see those flows, you stop guessing, you stop reacting, you start positioning, and positioning changes everything. Now let's go even deeper. There's a reason why wealth seems to concentrate over time. It's not random, it's structural, because those who already own assets benefit first from expansion, and that benefit compounds. They don't need to work harder. They don't need to catch up. They are already ahead of the flow, and every cycle pushes them further. Meanwhile, those who rely only on income are always adjusting after the fact, and that gap widens over time, not in a dramatic explosion, but in a steady, almost invisible divergence, until one day it's obvious, and by then, catching up is extremely difficult. This is why the middle class feels pressure, not because they stopped working hard, but because the system moved in a direction that effort alone can't match anymore. And this is where most people make their biggest mistake. They wait for certainty, they wait for clarity, they wait for the right moment. But in systems like this, the clarity comes after the move, not before. By the time something feels safe, at least it's already expensive. By the time everyone agrees, the opportunity is smaller. By the time it's obvious, it's late. And that's why waiting feels safe, but costs the most. Because the system doesn't pause for you to catch up. It keeps moving. Now here's the shift that separates people. Instead of asking, what should I do next? Ask, where is the system moving? And how do I align with it early? Because early alignment beats perfect execution. Every time. You don't need perfect timing. You need earlier positioning than the majority. And that's a much more realistic advantage. Now let's make this practical. There are only a few ways to move your position forward. 1. Increase exposure to assets that benefit from expansion. Not randomly, consistently, over time. 2. Reduce time spent only in income generation without asset accumulation, because income alone will always be reactive. 3. Understand cycles, not predict them perfectly, but recognize when the system is accelerating, because that's when positioning matters the most. And 4, act before you feel fully ready, because readiness is a psychological comfort, not a strategic advantage. Now here's the uncomfortable truth you need to accept. The system is not designed to make you rich. It's designed to function, to keep moving, to keep expanding, to keep balancing debt and growth. If you benefit from it, that's because you positioned correctly, not because the system decided to reward you. And if you don't, it's not because you failed. It's because you didn't understand the structure early enough, and that's a very different problem because effort doesn't fix structure. Awareness does. So if you're not rich yet, stop asking, why isn't this working? And start asking, what am I not seeing? Because the moment you see the system clearly, your decisions change automatically. You stop chasing what everyone else is chasing. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop measuring progress only by income. And you start thinking in terms of position, timing, and flow. And that's when things begin to shift. Not instantly, not magically, but directionally. And direction is what compounds. Because once you're moving with the system instead of against it, even small actions start to matter more. They stack, they build, they accelerate, and over time, that creates separation between those who understood early and those who didn't. And here's the final point. Wealth is not created the way most people think. It's not just earned. It's positioned into, it's aligned with, it's captured through understanding how the system actually moves. And if you don't understand that, you will keep doing more, getting less, and wondering why nothing changes. But once you do understand it, you stop playing blindly. And once you stop playing blindly, you stop losing without realizing it.